Hello, my name is Leo Smith. I am one of the Brightspace administrators at the West Lafayette campus of Purdue University.
I'm Deb Steffen, and I'm an educational technologist at the West Lafayette campus of Purdue University.
And I'm Ben Holmes. I'm an ed tech consultant at the West Lafayette campus of Purdue.
The title of our presentation is Getting Along, Sharing a Single Instance of Brightspace at a Large Institution. Our agenda for today is the challenge of managing Brightspace across campuses, governance with decision by consensus, our lessons learned, and our key takeaway. The Purdue Boilermakers are a Big Ten school with the main campus in West Lafayette, Indiana. 3 campuses of Purdue University were using Blackboard Learn: the Purdue Fort Wayne campus, the Purdue Northwest campus, and the Purdue West Lafayette campus. The P&W and the PWL campuses were sharing an instance of Blackboard Learn, while the PFW campus was using its own instance. When adopting D2L Brightspace, Purdue University decided to share a single instance across 3 campuses. Along with the task of migrating to D2L Brightspace, Purdue faced the challenge of managing monthly releases, configuration changes, bug fixes, and third-party vendor integrations. As a migration project team, we were tasked with deciding on governance for the Brightspace instance. Having a shared instance of Brightspace meant we needed shared governance.
So faced with this challenge, a core group of people from each campus came together to develop a brand new governance solution for the entire system. So a key piece of the governance solution that was devised was acknowledging that there needed to be both local and system level change management groups. Requests naturally flow from a local campus to a local change group that can approve any requests that come in or disapprove, and they can then flow to a system change group. So at the local level, we decided each campus should control their own processes for intake at the local level, as well as who's going to come to that, how often the meetings are held. Everything is up to the local campus for the local change management group. But at the system level, we worked to come up with a process that we all could agree to adhere to. At the system change management group, we decided there would be 1 voting member per campus to make sure that each campus was equally represented. All changes that flow from local to the system level change, these are changes that could potentially impact the other campuses. All of those changes are discussed and voted on at a weekly meeting. So there are some governance groups, executive governance groups that are tasked with very high-level decision-making, and they also serve as sort of a tiebreaker if the campuses cannot come to agreement at a system change meeting. So the process that we developed covers requests originating from the Purdue community, that would be the campuses, as well as the monthly updates that come in from D2L, because we also need to control the updates, as well as change requests. The senior leadership groups, they are only involved as needed. They're not involved week to week. The weekly system change meeting, we're able to handle most changes. So the key group that came together to develop the process created a document that was approved by all campuses. As part of the document, we created an aid to help us work through the flow of requests. So that's what you're looking at here is this flow chart. The area in purple, that's what goes on at the local change group. The local change group gets a request or discusses a D2L monthly update, and then decides if that request should be made escalated to the system level. Now, some changes we know for sure don't impact the system. And so there's a number of changes that happen at the local level that the system never learns about. But if there's any doubt about the impact on other campuses, or if it's a system level change, it goes to the, if approved, goes to the system change management group. The requesting campus needs to build the case and demonstrate the need and organize testing for any request that goes to the system level. And so what that looks like is it'll be brought up at the system meeting and discussed, and then kind of green lighted for testing and additional discussion. So the requesting campus might go back and engage in some testing in our test instance, and then come back at the next meeting and demonstrate how the change would work. Say it's a role, showing how the role would work under different use cases, and demonstrate to the system what the impact will be. So after what can be a number of iterations through that, where it's discussed at the system level, goes back to local change, and then we come back and discuss it again, and then we decide if we're ready, if we're going to have ready for a unanimous vote. Are we all going to be in agreement? And so what we really strive for via that process is a unanimous approval. So that's showing that in that green circle there. That's the key to our process. So we work really hard to come up with unanimity to make sure all concerns are addressed so that we can go ahead and approve as a system the change that's made. While most requests, the vast majority that we've seen in the last 3 years since we adopted D2L, while the vast majority are unanimously approved, we did develop in our process a way that we could adjudicate disagreements. And that's what's outlined in the yellow lines there. So if we cannot come up with unanimous approval of a change request, the requesting campus creates a document that can be shared both locally and with a campus leads governance group. If we're still not able to come up with consensus approval at the system meeting, then it'll go to the campus leads group, which consists of one person from each campus. And then the final decision is made from there. So another thing we needed to really think about is, how are we going to track and document changes? There's so many changes made, and we need to be able to understand in the future why and when we made decisions to make changes in the past. So currently we're using Google Forms for that to intake requests. We chose Google because despite the fact that we're 365 campuses, we're on different tenants. So that made document sharing difficult. We also share responsibility for leading the weekly system change meeting. So that goes from campus to campus. The person who does that is responsible for taking notes and making sure that our discussions are on track and that we're covering all of the relevant requests for that particular time period. We found that the weekly meeting is necessary. Our agendas are full every week. And the weekly meeting, though, is also not burdensome for the campuses. So what are kind of requests have we taken via this governance solution in the last 3 years? So this is just a summary of the change types that we've had. So roughly, the majority of our requests have been adding or changing roles. That consumes a lot of our time. We have a lot of LTIs over 50. So any LTI installation, we've determined needs to be approved by the system because there might be license issues. It may not be an appropriate version. We need to discuss security and so on. So that's also handled at the system level. Enabling and removing features is another big one. And then we have a handful of others. So over the last 3 years, we've had 135 requests, and only 3 out of that required escalation. So only 3 did not have unanimous approval, and those were an impersonate learner. Some staff wanted the ability to impersonate actual learner accounts, We're also working through enabling what it would look like to enable the pronoun features that was released by D2L recently. And then also very early on, we had some initial discussions about what a homepage might look like. But overall, we feel that this governance solution that we developed together that focuses on working to establish consensus has been highly successful.
So now let's talk about some of the lessons we learned through this process. And hopefully these will be useful to you as you embark on your own change management processes. So we learned that equal input in creating the governance model was key. So we started this process together. We built the processes for change management together, and that allowed us to have a shared stake in the process and how it works. So as we found issues with the process, everyone had a stake in solving those issues, resolving them to the best of our ability. We also found that sharing the workload was a big benefit. So this, not only the actual doing of tasks, but because we share testing and we share watching the releases, keeping an eye on things, we catch issues earlier, both in updates that come from D2L and in changes in our configuration. With all eyes on it, we catch things. And we're not one insular group. We are disparate groups that work separately most of the time. And then we come together, weekly. And so we can bring our separate experiences and separate skills to bear in monitoring the system and deciding on the best changes to make. And of course, communication and trust are key. So we keep each other in the loop on all changes that might affect the system. And we do a lot of work to make sure that everyone is listened to, that all parties are respected. There are members of our change board who are at all different levels of the organization. And so it's important for us to listen to everyone's perspective. And that way everyone knows that their input is valuable and we get the best out of everyone. Unanimous approval is key. So we only implement changes after unanimous approval by all campuses. If there's not agreement, then we take it to the next level, which is appropriate because usually the actual issues when there's a disagreement have to do with an issue that's beyond the control of the change group. And so it needs to be discussed elsewhere. So this takes any truly fraught decisions off our plate. And it's very easy for us to manage the vast bulk of the decisions within our group. And then finally, the process is not written in stone. It's a living process. It changes with time. And so when we find that there are things that are inefficient or causing extra work, then we come together and we make changes as a group. And that has been successful over time. So our key takeaway for you is that building consensus takes time. It can slow down decisions, but it is well worth the time investment. So we took the time from the very beginning to build the trust and the respect as we built the process, and that paid off. And now we have a process that where all parties are in agreement before we make a change. And that means everyone feels respected, everyone brings their best to the table, and there's very little stress inherent in the process because of that. So that makes it easy. And hopefully that will help you if you're embarking on managing multiple campuses or multiple constituencies together in one Brightspace instance. We've done it, it can be done, and we've been able to be successful for 3 years on it, and we're stronger because of the process that we've gone through. So hopefully that's helpful, and I'm going to put our contact info on the screen. Please reach out if you have questions about our experience as it might apply to the situation that you're in. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you, everyone.